when I do stuff like this, we record all of it so that we put on the internet so people can see these ideas collide. When people stop talking, that's when you get violence. That's when civil war happens, because you start to think the other side is so evil.
Is there an assassination culture coming out of the radical left in this country? Just consider this. There are currently 3 accused assassins in court on this day. Tyler Robinson, Charlie Kirk's suspected assassin. Ryan Ruth, charged with attempting to assassinate President Trump. And Luigi Mangione, accused of executing in cold blood, daylight, middle of Manhattan, the United Healthcare CEO. A deeply disturbing study out of Rutgers University shows violent political rhetoric as being increasingly normalized. Here's a quote. Political violence appears to have surged, especially among politically left-leaning segments of the population. Data from that very study show what respondents from the left actually say is acceptable, even justified. Senior national correspondent digging into it for us, William LaJeunesse in Los Angeles. William.
Well, Harris, there are actually 2 new reports that suggest there's this growing tolerance for political violence across the board, but especially, as you mentioned, on the left. According to those Rutgers University researchers, in a poll of more than 1,000 Americans, 50% who self-identify as progressive said killing Elon Musk can be somewhat justified. 56% said the same for assassinating President Trump. 14% said it could be completely justified. Also, 59% of those same respondents said destroying a Tesla dealership in protest was somewhat acceptable. And where is this hate coming from? Well, social media. The Rutgers report said that the platform Blue Sky, the Democrat alternative to X, quote, plays a significant and predictive role in amplifying radical ideas.
The left really has much more of a, I don't talk to you, I don't want to deal with you, you're deplorable, I can't break bread with you.
Yeah.
That attitude, and like all the right-wingers, they don't have that attitude.
So in a separate U.gov survey of 3,000 adults after Charlie Kirk's killing, 72% of Americans said violence is not justified. 11% said it can be somewhat justified. But here's the big difference. 21% of self-identified liberals said violence is justified to achieve political goals, compared to just 4% of conservatives.
Most of the violence is on the left.
He said that social media is a cancer.
What?
Do you agree with that?
There are deep, dark holes that are cancerous, absolutely. Beyond cancer, they're death.
So the number of posts on Blue Sky celebrating Kirk's death got so bad, Harris, the site was forced to warn users that glorifying violence or harm violates their guidelines. Now, I just spoke to the Rutgers University researcher, and he told me this doesn't mean that 50% of people advocate murder, but rather that it can be justified. And they've been doing this for years, he said, and the needle is moving in the wrong direction. Harris?
You know that there's such a fine line of difference there, though. I mean, just because, actually, I don't see the difference. I really don't. We're not saying that half of the country would, or half of those liberals would like to see someone killed, but, oh my goodness, advocating for it and also excusing it and expecting that it's okay, I don't think there's much of a difference, but we'll have to agree to disagree. Good to see you. Thank you.
Sure.
Wow, that seems like a lot of people. In focus now, Ari Fleischer, Fox News contributor, former White House press secretary. Ari, I mean, if it's 1%, it's 1% too many. Why is this assassination culture even being talked about right now? What's happening?
And that's a good way to start this conversation, because I do believe that 99% of the American people are appalled at what happened. There is a slice, however, of people we need to talk about, and that is people who celebrate murder. And it's horrible, and especially if this murder was inspired by politics. If this murder was inspired, and it increasingly appears that it was, based on the evidence the FBI and Utah authorities are discovering, that this was a politically motivated hit job because the killer didn't like Charlie Kirk's ideas. Who would celebrate that? There's a sickness It is largely a sickness from the left. It does exist to some degree, smaller, on the right, but it exists on the left. College campuses are a big part. Professors are a big part of preaching this, and I'm afraid we have a generation that's grown up believing it.
Well, and you know, college campuses too. I mean, conservatives have been shut down for so long. People like Charlie Kirk, President Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, I mean, they are giving that voice and spirit of speak your mind and let them hate you for it, but speak your mind. But you ask who would celebrate it. Let me give you an idea because we have some video. Supporters of Luigi Mangione, and I mentioned previously, he executed in broad daylight in the middle of Manhattan, the United Healthcare CEO. They were cheering when they heard that the judge had dropped the domestic terrorism charge against Mangione. Now, remember what I just described that he did. But these people thought that was a good idea to cheer. I mean, this exists in this country, and it's not just a sliver of people. If you're in that crowd, that's a problem, Ari.
You know, when I see this, my first thought is, how were you raised? Who instilled these values in you? And if it wasn't your parents, what happened to you? And that's where it takes me to academia. That's where it takes me to high school teachers or college teachers, and of course, social media. And here's what I really want to know when Charlie Kirk's murder. What was he reading, the killer? What was he reading on social media that told him Charlie Kirk was such an evil person? Whose messages was he reading? Who polluted his mind?
Wow.
Who got Charlie Kirk so twisted and wrong that they put these ideas in a killer's head? Because there is culpability there as well. This is what happens when people call the opposition Nazis, fascists, existential threats to democracy.
You know, you're talking about Congress people now.
This,
Ilhan Omar,
Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
It is congressional leaders, it's President Biden and Kamala Harris. When they demonize their opponents and say it's not, like Charlie Kirk used to say, a difference of what you think and what I think, but let's talk it through. They say you're illegitimate, you're a Nazi. Adolf Hitler needed to be stopped. If Donald Trump is Adolf Hitler, should he be stopped? Is that what it means? People have got to be wiser. They have to use tolerant words when they politically differ with somebody. Fight the ideas, not the person.
You know, I do have to say this because you said, well, what were they raised in? And that can sometimes play a part. It has been reported, perhaps in Tyler Robinson's case, the assassin suspected of killing Charlie Kirk, that he was radicalized into his adulthood. I mean, we do have to leave room for just people being adults who get radicalized and have to take responsibility for their choices. We'll move on. Ari, always great to have a conversation with you. Thank you.
Hey, everyone. I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.